Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Ryan Holtz Show podcast. Today I am in beautiful British Columbia at my home, and my next guest is in California, which is a very different contrast from where I am outside. I'm seeing mountains and snow. He's seeing the Frisco Bay and the Golden Gate Bridge and the epicenter of the tech world at Palo Alto. My next guest is Brandon Sewell. Brandon is a corporate sales professional representing LinkedIn in the mid-market enterprise space in Canada. He works with clients to help them achieve their talent management goals by leveraging the power of LinkedIn's 500 million plus person network. Based out of Toronto, his experience has been primarily in technology, sales, and recruitment. 7 months ago, he assumed the position of the Canadian lead for the Black Inclusion Group, BIG, an employee resource group, ERG, on LinkedIn. Most recently, he joined the executive committee that has put together the Black Professionals in Technology Network in Canada. Being someone who has grown up around all different walks of life, he understands the benefits that a diverse environment can have on people. Brandon, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so my biggest thing is, so I seen you, I think it was Camille Dundas, who does the Buy Blacks magazine or something like that with her husband. And I had her on the podcast. Super colorful woman. Love her. Lots of energy. And she likes something on your LinkedIn. No pun intended, LinkedIn. I just, for me, I mean, I'm a half Jamaican, half German dude. And, I love when I see, big technology houses really try to, have that inclusiveness or craft or strategically create programs that really promote that. So can you just give us an overview of what this program is, how long you've been at LinkedIn, and how the heck Brandon's even made his journey to LinkedIn in general? Like, what's your story?
Yeah, those are all great questions, and it's kind of, I guess I got to think about where do I start here. So
absolutely,
my journey sort of starts in university. I went to the University of Western Ontario, did a 4-year program in business, specialized in finance, and I found myself, similar to many other new graduates, thinking about what am I going to do, entering the real world. Where am I going to sort of make my mark? And it sort of started for me in sales. I kind of fell into a sales role, working at a company called Canon, selling photocopiers door to door.
Oh, good for you.
Pretty grinded out job. I had people kick me out of their offices. I had the police call. Opening experience as a young 23-year-old guy. But what I did learn is I learned a lot about business. And I learned a lot about not only selling, but also understanding business problems and kind of solving those. Long story short, I got into the world of recruitment, where I started off as a headhunter, and I was actually helping companies fill positions of various sorts, both lower level and up to management and senior level roles. And in that position as a headhunter, that's where I really started to understand the landscape of the business world and sort of where I wanted to sort of make my mark. And that's where I sort of discovered tech. I saw all these opportunities in tech. I saw all the money people were making and all these amazing things that people were doing in terms of how the world was shifting and how technology was really becoming the centerpiece for how companies really solve a lot of their business problems. And I said to myself, I got to get into this world. I'm all about it. So then I essentially finessed my way into an opportunity with a company called Citrix, another big tech company based out of California, in a sales role based in Toronto. And I got my start there in tech, selling software. And after 2 years there, I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity present itself at LinkedIn. I interviewed 3 times for opportunities there, so it definitely wasn't easy. I definitely had to pay my dues and really get in there. But once I got in, it's just been a completely transformative experience. And as you mentioned it, I work with businesses to help them solve their talent acquisition problems with LinkedIn and the division that I work at. And we're selling our tools to recruiters and talent acquisition staff. So that's really where our bread and butter is in our world. And about 7 months ago, I had an opportunity to go above my role in terms of taking a volunteer position and join as the lead for Canada in the Black Inclusion Group.
Yep.
And this is employee resource group. LinkedIn's very big on diversity. We have employee resource groups for the LGBT community, for the Latin American community, for the Chinese American community, and then also the Black community. So LinkedIn's very big on diversity, especially, and on top of that, I should mention the woman Wally Women at LinkedIn, which is also a very huge group, and so really my thoughts here was to really find a way to empower the community, bring inclusiveness, and do that in a fun way so that everybody feels included and we can have fun while doing everything and give people opportunities, both internally and externally.
Well, I wanted to have you on the show because I feel that, in the tech space, I mean, there's obviously, umpteen articles written about diversity and females and visible minorities and inclusions and things like that going on in there. You heading up this specific department for LinkedIn, do you feel that, like, is it because LinkedIn sees there's not enough Black people or people of visible minority in the space? Or do they feel that the employers aren't, aggressively trying to be inclusive? Like, is LinkedIn's stance or is your mandate one of more trying to, create more awareness, both in the minority community, but then also in the tech space itself? Is it kind of a hybrid, or is there a specific focus?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a part of it is understanding that there is a gap in diversity and executive management knowing that, and then enabling programs like these to try and help that. And then I think the second part of it is just the inclusion part. A lot of companies talk about diversity and, they may make quote unquote diversity hires, but you can have people of different ethnic backgrounds in an organization, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they feel included. So a part of the employee resource groups is to foster an environment of inclusion so that people that come from different walks of life can all come to work together and feel like they're a part of a greater goal and come to work and enjoy themselves and feel like they're in a very comfortable, safe environment where they could be their authentic self and still strive in their day-to-day work responsibilities. Well,
stand in the service of others by living your true authentic self. This is a quote that Jason Main, one of my previous guests, had on. He's actually in the Palo Alto community. He owns a company called Super Heroic, and he was the former lead designer for the Nike Air Jordan brand. And he said, and when I kind of seen you, I kind of felt the same way. As he said, I want when people to see me, they can see themselves. So the fact that you're a Black dude, you like basketball, and we could always go stereotypical on some aspects, but then not on the others. It's nice to see that, you see that spice and flavor at a company like LinkedIn. I think when somebody says I work at LinkedIn, as you know, if you're at a party or you're hanging out, it's a pretty big thing. And I'm sure people are like, dude, you work at LinkedIn. So you're a walking billboard of diversity for them, just literally being there and being the presence. So for you, and you're not an old guy at all, for you, what has your journey been like? What is your day-to-day? If somebody was to say, hey, Brandon, like give me your day-to-day, I want a job shot of you. What does that look like for you at LinkedIn?
Yeah, first off, I think that you raise a really good point. I'm not necessarily the quote unquote typical image that one may have when you think of like a tech salesperson or somebody that works for a Bay Area company. Yeah. But when I am at parties, sometimes I do get a second look when I tell people where I work. But that's what makes it great, and I love that. Because, when I go out and I speak to younger kids, kids that are in their teenagers or kids that haven't even entered high school yet, and I tell them sort of what I do, that's where people can start realizing opportunity. Kids can start realizing opportunity and understand you talk a certain way or quote unquote, dress a certain way to necessarily get to where you want to be. It's about being yourself, but also having the intelligence and the wherewithal to be the best person you can be. Where it starts for me is essentially my day to day is very much relationship management. So I have accounts across the country, from everywhere from the East Coast, Halifax to West Coast, Vancouver. And my role is very much managing these clients. They spend X amount of dollars with us, and my role is to make sure that they're happy, that they're making strategic decisions when it comes to using tools, and that they're realizing their value and meeting their business objectives. I have companies that hire, that make hiring all over the world, and they need to understand how to scale out some of the recruitment efforts. So I'm really working with them to understand that, and then put different programs and tools together that LinkedIn offers to help them get to that scale, because we're a 500 million person network on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of people, we have a lot of data, and the companies want to know sort of how to access the right data that's relevant to them to allow them to reach their goals. Well,
LinkedIn is, I own a digital marketing company, and I mean, LinkedIn for me is a B2B play, obviously, business to business. It's a platform that probably, I would say as recent as maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I actually started to really put some effort into. I love Twitter. I love my Instagram. I love all those, but LinkedIn is, it's serious business in that sense. Now, my spidey senses tell me, man, LinkedIn's got some mean stewed chicken brewing in terms of the tech. And I, with their recent rollout of video, I think that's a really, really huge thing. I literally didn't get video till like a couple days ago, dude. I was so hurt. I thought I was the only guy that didn't have native video. And then I thought at first, like I even messaged LinkedIn. I'm like, is it about followers or connections? Because I'm like, there's somebody that's got like 400 connections and they got native video. I mean, what's up? Like, is there something I'm doing on it? I won't spam people. I promise you. But again, I mean, going back to your point of saying when you're out at parties or networks or things like that, and you say, hey, I work at LinkedIn, people kind of look at you like, oh, wow. It's interesting because I think when people say tech space, it's like Mark Zuckerberg, right? He wears, a hoodie and he was eating ramen noodles in school and, going to Harvard. But where people come from, especially with rough areas or impoverished areas, eating ramen noodles wasn't cool. Ramen noodles was like, yo, I'm here to survive. So how do you kind of bridge that gap between being, hey, I don't have to be some geeky guy to work at LinkedIn. I can also stay, cool or have some finesse, quote unquote, but then still bridge that gap between mentoring, let's say some younger black folks out in Toronto to say, listen, man, you can still listen to hip hop music and, be an astute member of society working at a great job. Like, how do you bridge? And has that been maybe even not a challenge, but has that been something you've been trying to figure out as you're kind of going along in your journey?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something that, I've always tried to figure out. It's just about obviously finding out I think actually it starts about finding out what your strengths are, right? Everyone's got strengths and weaknesses. And when I talk to the younger generation, I really try to stress that, everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. Just a lot of people don't know what they are yet. So the hardest thing to do is to identify what you're really good at and then focusing in on mastering what you're really good at. And the second part to it is education. You have to really, it doesn't matter if you listen to hip hop music or you wear hoodies or you come from a certain area that might be sort of underserviced by the community at large. But at the end of the day, education is the key. If you go to school and you study and you work hard and you really start understanding the way the world works and whether it be business or if you want to go become get into the sciences or be a lawyer or whatever the case may be, it really starts with education. And if you educate yourself, you'll be fine.
Do you know what LinkedIn did for humanity? In my opinion, the number one single most important thing they did for humanity was they literally, for the first time ever, made sure that everybody, and if they don't understand this, that every person that has a first, last name and a social insurance number or a social security number is a walking brand. And what I mean by that is if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for a client, if you're coming on or you're doing whatever, people are watching and they are looking at all times. Now, when you go into the groups and speak, how do you leverage LinkedIn and how do you scale it down to them to get them to understand in their context what LinkedIn could do for them and how they could still keep it, quote unquote, real with themselves, but then still go out and get that hustle, whatever the hustle is for them that they actually want.
Yeah, I think it really, first of all, it starts with who I'm speaking to. And if we're going to use the example of, the younger generation, since we've been on that topic, when I speak to them, a lot of these kids, whether they're in high school or in university, they want to find jobs, whether it be a part-time job or they want to position themselves to, finally get that full corporate job once they graduate. They really got to start thinking about, how to position themselves. Yeah. And, a lot of objections I get when I speak to these groups of people is that, well, I've only worked in a retail sales job, or I've only worked, at summer camp. So why should I put that on LinkedIn, or why should I put that on social media? And that's not sort of necessarily the right way to think about it. It's really about everybody starts somewhere. Me personally, I used to coach basketball in the summer during university. I worked at Foot Locker. I've sold mustard. When I was younger, I was a little bit of that quote unquote hustler. Trying to do a little bit of everything to get by. But you know what? It's when you have those jobs, there's certain things that those jobs teach you. Whether you're working construction, that teaches hard work. If you're working in a retail sales world, that shows customer service and your ability to communicate with other people. So Absolutely. It's really important to think about, okay, these might not be the most glamorous jobs, but if I can position these jobs on LinkedIn and position them in a way that shows people that are looking at me that these are the skills that I've gained, you're positioning yourself in a pretty strong way to show people that, okay, he may have worked at the Gap, but he's got some good communication and sales skills because of that. He worked construction, which shows he's a hard worker. So it's just thinking about it like that, I think, helps people and the younger generation start thinking about branding and how to just sort of elevate themselves on social media.
What's your brand? If somebody says, "Yo, Brandon Sewell, what's your brand?" Like who are you? I know you're a basketball fan. I know you like traveling. You're raised in the six. As far as Drake said, started from the bottom. He never started from the bottom, by the way. I know where he grew up, and that's an expensive. I don't care if you were in a basement suite. Those houses are nice. The basement is nice. But yeah. I love Drake, but he did not start from the bottom. However, what's the brand of you? When it's funny because we all have a social responsibility. I had a guest on who's a YouTube star, zillions and zillions of views. And I asked him, I said, do you feel the messaging that you're putting out is of the utmost importance in terms of the social message and responsibility that you have? And he answered yes. Do you take on a certain responsibility when it comes to, being a quote unquote visible minority at LinkedIn and knowing that every time somebody sees, who's Jane and Finch or Scarborough or wherever is like, Brandon, man, that guy, who's that guy? And kind of double takes you. Do you feel that, or do you not think about it that way? Or, what's your vibe on that?
That's a great question. And it's not really one that's necessarily easy to answer because for me, I grew up around everybody.
Yeah.
Growing up, if you look at my friend group, I've got friends from all over
Absolutely.
The continent, and that's what all over the world, and that's what makes, I think, Canada just a great place. And for me, when I first joined LinkedIn, I mean, brand is obviously, LinkedIn preaches brand externally, and internally it's also very much a big thing. How are you going to sort of make your brand and carve out your space in the company? And it took me a while to sort of figure it out, as I was getting comfortable with the role, the new company. And my brand very much in the office is one of being an advocate for diversity and a champion for diversity, not just in terms of the Black community, but amongst all the ERGs. One that fosters inclusivity. I'm definitely the guy that will go to every different team, department, try to hang out with everybody, get to know everybody, because that's very much my personality, and I think that sort of resonates within the office and also across the various offices that I visit with LinkedIn. I just try to do my best to to just let people be. I want people to be themselves around me. I like people who are real, that don't, have that corporate mask on them and just really, show themselves, because that's what it's all about. I mean, everybody's got their own personality, and why fit yourself into a box just because society says you have to be a certain way. Well,
and that was going to be my next point, is when we talk about inclusion groups or LGBT, I hate labels. Like I can't stand them. And I know we put labels on in a society and in the corporate world because it's a way to stay organized. I kind of look at a label like a hashtag. A hashtag is a great way to, interact with a specific topic or category. And you can't have organized chaos. You do have to be organized. When it comes to the Black inclusion group, how did you kind of get handpicked or fall into that? And what exactly, like, I did see the post. I think you were speaking to a group on LinkedIn or something like that. But like, are you going around to different youth groups, or like, what does that look like? How are you guys actually reaching out through that program?
Yeah, so I actually hunted it out.
Okay.
Because it was something that I wanted to be involved with. Now, we only expanded it into the Toronto office at the beginning of last year, so it was pretty much a new endeavor for the group at large. And when you essentially join the group, it's really up to you. It's very much what you put in is what you get out of it type of thing. And my sort of goals for it, and I never really thought of myself as being like this Black activist type of person or somebody that's like Black power. That was never really my mandate when doing this. It was just really much two things. One, understanding that there is a lack of there's a color gap in the corporate world and in tech specifically. So doing what I can, using the platform that I have to try and enable change, and working and putting together various programs. And then second of all was just creating an inclusive environment and making it fun, allowing the culture that sometimes goes, unseen in the tech world when it comes to, African Canadian, African American, Black culture, and just kind of bringing that into the office, but having a fun spin on it so that everybody still has a good time and people don't feel alienated. Because my whole thing is that, when Black people try to push themselves forward, which is absolutely they should be doing, you have to also remember that you can't alienate the other side. And even though I don't like thinking about it as a side, because I'm friends with everybody. It's really about how do we put together certain programs so that everybody feels like they're included in that, and that it's not like a big thing to maybe try something different. And on the external side, when I speak to the youth, or when we do sort of external outreach programs, it's really about enabling the kids and enabling people that maybe come from lesser fortunate circumstances, and showing them the opportunity. We're putting together a team, not just of me, but with my colleagues of all different ethnic backgrounds, and just showing that this is a corporate environment. We do really well in our jobs, and we all look different, but we all get along great, and this is something that is an opportunity for you. You guys can get to where we are. We're not special. We weren't spoon-fed or given these opportunities. This is something that we work for, and you can do it too.
Wow, there's a delusional line, a very thin line between playing the victim and then not wanting to put in the work, right? And I think in our community, I've had Black folks reach out to me, and I wouldn't say that they said I was like a sellout, but they basically, kind of gave a hateration comment in the sense of, well, I mean, okay, for instance, my clients, or if I go speak at an event, oftentimes I'm the only Black dude. Like, I mean, I'll be the only Black speaker and the only attendee. And, even in the back of my head, I'm like, where the hell is everybody? What happened to those days? I mean, even when you went clubbing, you went to these little hip hop reggae dance hall parties. I'm like, man, all these guys came out then. Where the hell are they? Like downtown Yonge Street, like where you at? And I think that I implore people to not play the victim mentality. And yes, we're trying to be inclusive and bring awareness, but it's a level playing field now. Like the moment the internet came out and we had these smartphones, I mean, we have access to the world. So for you, what in your personal life has made you passionate enough not to have a mandate of being a black power or anything like that, but just having the mandate to want to make a difference and actually take a level of accountability onto yourself? Because there's something in your history or your past that makes you feel somewhat passionate about taking on an endeavor like this.
Yeah. I think everybody's got different experiences that shape them and drive them. And you bring up a great point about sort of fault versus responsibility. You know, certain things happen to everybody, where it's very easy for the human brain to just want to victimize themselves. You know, I'm the victim. You know, this happened to me, and you know, I'm kind of stuck. And then there's the people that sort of take responsibility for what happened and will say, you know, I'm going to make change. Yes, this happens to me. It sucks. So what? Suck it up and go make change. For me, I think the biggest sort of moment in my life came when I lost my father when I was 14 years old, unfortunately to stomach cancer. And that was a really traumatizing time for me and my family. And my dad was a phenomenal person. He came here when he was 15 years old from Jamaica with no money in his pocket. Brilliant guy, ended up becoming a doctor, fast-tracked his way through med school, and was just not only a doctor, but a great humanitarian in his area, in the Malvern, Scarborough area.
Malvern.
You know, he worked.
Malvern. I've heard Malvern back in the day. Back in the day, Malvern definitely had a rep.
So, and he was very much in that community. Working with people of all different ethnicities, empowering them. He still wins awards today that I go and accept on his behalf. Wow. So losing him was tough, and it was that. To this day, I mean, that's really where my drive comes from. You know, seeing what he was able to do and the legacy he was able to leave is something that, you know, I want to try and mimic in my life, and that's sort of what drives me, not only to work hard and you know, quote unquote, take responsibility for the fault that happened to me, but also you know, try to help others, because I think it's sort of in my DNA being his son.
Well, you have first off, I mean, much respect and blessing and love to your father. You know, I can relate. I lost my mom when I was 13, and my mom was a single mom. And, you know, that is, I always say, thank God I played football. I got into football around 14, and I was nobody would know it. And when we talk about mental illness and awareness and stuff like that, you know, I took a lot of that aggression and anger and put that into a sport. And I'm sure you've seen, if somebody takes that aggression and anger and puts it into something bad things happen, right? Absolutely. And I feel very blessed that, you know, I had that outlet. But so going forward, I mean, for you, seeing how your father kind of came over, and, you know, props to Jamaica, man, you know, the bad man, the Brownstown, the bad man, you know, every time I hear Jamaica, it makes me want to, I'm going to use the air horn sound. Boom, boom. Trust me, when you listen to the podcast, you're going to hear air horn in here. But, you know, it is huge. And I find it's interesting, like LinkedIn, and I don't know LinkedIn. I know it as a user, but LinkedIn is a company, I'm sure, that says, we're not LinkedIn. Our people are LinkedIn. You're building your brand by the people that are involved with your team. So even though we say Brandon Sewell is at LinkedIn, I mean, LinkedIn's comprised of Brandon Sewell. It's all people. When you're going around and you're on these committees and talking to people, what are some things that are common, maybe misrepresentations or common just things that you feel like, wow, I kind of keep hearing this, and you kind of address the same issues over and over? Is there any specific things, maybe almost like some frequently asked questions type thing that you feel are, you know, I want my listeners just to get a good sense of, like, maybe they're thinking the same thing too, you know?
Yeah. I think the biggest one that I hear, especially when you think about the member side and like why people should be using LinkedIn, is that LinkedIn is just a job board. That's the number one thing I hear, and it's just so incorrect. Like, yes, that's a third of what we do in terms of, you know, offering quote unquote economic opportunity to our members and giving them the ability to find their next play and their next job opportunity. But it's so much more than that. I mean, we've already spoken earlier on the podcast about branding, and that's really another big part of what LinkedIn is able to do, is just really representing your brand. If you think about where the world's moving, from in terms of just the job applicant and job seeker perspective, the resume is dying. I think everybody can sort of see that.
Oh yeah.
It's social media and LinkedIn specifically where you're going to be able to position yourself to attract that next job. So it's more than just sort of a job board where you go on and just find jobs and apply to them. The second part of what makes LinkedIn great is just the content, and the amount of learning and knowledge you're able to absorb just by being on the network. If you're able to curate your news feed so that you're following things that you're passionate about, whether that be politics, sports, business, there's so much content that can get pushed out to you, and you can see and read so many cool things to make you a better person and make you better in your day to day, whether it be for professional reasons or even for personal reasons. Like I'm a big sports fan now. Obviously, sports has nothing to do with my job, but I get a lot of sports information from LinkedIn, amongst other websites. Brandon,
sports has everything to do with your job, bro. Trust me. You and I both know. I mean, your hustle, your grit. You just said, hey, I'm a hunter. I hunted down this position. I worked at Citrix. I hunted down to LinkedIn. That's all the competitive edge, man. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you focus. It teaches you, if you got a goal here, you got to put the work to get to here, right? I mean, sure. It's all intertwined with that. And sorry to interject, but with LinkedIn, the biggest thing for me is you mentioned the word content. Content is huge. Now, when LinkedIn brought video, I feel like it was a big move, because I feel like it could, of course, people are going to say, oh, it's a great move. There's video. Video is tricky, because as soon as you bring out video, you can have every, Tom, Dick, and Harry who's on LinkedIn just start spamming with video. And then, as we know, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said, hey, Facebook has became a little too busy. A lot of people are complaining. There's too many advertisements. We need to go back to that connecting with friends, family, and, how Facebook created. So for you, let's go bare minimum. I'm brand new to LinkedIn. And just like the rest of the internet is, 10% of the users create 90% of the content, which means a lot of people are sitting there looking. What pieces of content do you feel get rewarded on LinkedIn, not just by LinkedIn, but by the actual user base of LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think the type of content that's authentic, a lot of stories. People love stories. Storytelling is huge.
Yeah.
You could tell a great story. It would be the life of any party.
Yeah.
So I think stories and people who share the authentic stories that relate to people are the types of content that get the most engagement, whether that be a piece of content written by an individual member or a story that was written by a company, or some type of real life experiences that a company or a member has done, are generally the types of content that garner the most or the highest levels of engagement.
Okay. Now for you, in terms of the actual profile, filling out your profile, it's funny because now that you work at LinkedIn, my expectation of your LinkedIn game has to be like 110. So as soon as I connected with you and you connected back, I'm like, man, I'm gonna digitally LinkedIn stalk this guy. So when it says who's viewed your profile, I'm like, oh, he's going to see me every day on there, because I kind of look at it and I'm like, you got all these, TechCrunch and HuffPost and all these places that always write articles based on speculation, not all factual. I like to go right to the source and say, if somebody's working at LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, what the heck are they doing with the platform? Because they have, you're in that ecosystem. Even if you don't know all the insider information, you're working at the company. So you're getting a completely different perspective from anybody who's just a user. So do you feel there is a few misconceptions that you could share with us that are just kind of everyday knowledge that you think, man, people really think they got LinkedIn figured out, but man, they kind of don't, because X, Y, Z.
Yeah. With LinkedIn, especially when you think about sort of the profile and how you liked or how you're thinking about sort of designing your profile, the first thing you have to think about is, what are you trying to achieve on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
So are you in a position where you are looking for your next great opportunity? are you in a position where you just want to sort of, put out your brand and then start connecting with people and sort of having more visibility raised on yourself. So, you really want to think about what you're trying to achieve with your profile. And then from there, that's when you can start tailoring it. Like if you look at my profile is very much not a job seeker profile. I don't have my executive summary filled out. I very much just list my past work experience. I have skills, but then I have a lot of recommendations.
Yes.
And if you look closely on my activity feed, you could see all the stuff I'm reading through, liking and engaging with, because for me, my LinkedIn profile is very much a branding tool for me.
Yeah.
So when people are thinking about LinkedIn and how to sort of put their sort of profile together, that's where I would start. But what makes LinkedIn, what differentiates it is just the network and the ability to grow your own network. So I would encourage everyone to connect with everybody that they know, or people that they may not know. Connect to people. Boosting people endorsing skills is also really big, because that's how your profile gets, one of the ways that your profile garners more visibility on the network, on people who have a lot of skills that are endorsed. Things like that really showcase what you as a member are all about, and then using that to reach your goals.
Now, what's so funny is I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. I'm like, okay, this is Boss Man Brandon, and then I fly over to Instagram. The first thing I look at is, oh, this guy's got his profile private. So I'm looking at your profile. I'm like, okay. So now I got Brandon. He's not going to subscribe to one lane. So he's got his professional on LinkedIn. Your Twitter, very similar, because Twitter's open. So, but then Instagram, I'm like, oh, that's his playground. He's playing on Instagram. So, it's kind of interesting. Well, it's interesting, right? Because you're like, well, I'm not going to post the same stuff I would on Instagram, obviously on LinkedIn, because it's a completely different audience for that. It's kind of like when I see people trying to do the Facebook thing, I'm like, no, don't do Facebook on on LinkedIn. That is not the profile to do that with. However, kind of rolling over, so a little bit more on the personal side. So you're a diehard Raptors fan, and you're a newbie crypto investor. Can you kind of talk to me about crypto investor, why your head's there, and how that even works?
Yeah. So, but first, let me just start saying I'm by no means a crypto genius.
No, that's okay.
I'm very, very much new to this. And similar to probably a lot of other people who just recently put their money into it, it's just more so kind of trying to ride the wave. And at this point with, cryptocurrency, it's all speculation. Like, I'm not naive to know that. We know with the whole blockchain technology and the way that, people are starting to think about, currency movement and that sort of thing. I saw friends that have done really well. Actually, my uncle bought Bitcoin 3 years ago. And, he's doing really well now.
Yeah.
Another guy that made $500,000. So I see all these people making great money. And I was just like, why not put a little bit of money into it and see what happens. So I did some reading, worked with a couple of my friends who were a lot more knowledgeable than me. And, I made some quote unquote bets, because that's really what they are at this point.
Yeah.
Put together a portfolio of different coins, and I guess we'll see. So far it's been about a couple months. Some have gone up, some have gone down, but we'll see in a year. But the one thing that I will say is that, and if anyone's listening to this that's thinking about doing it, is don't put more money than you're willing to lose.
Absolutely.
At this point, it's very speculative. So, don't mortgage your house. Don't do
Well, it's kind of like the stock market. I mean, you can research and know, but you don't know. At the end of the day, you don't know, indefinitely. Toronto, being raised in Toronto. I mean, are you married? Do you have kids? Who's Brandon? Are you in the dating scene? Like, who's Brandon? Who's the guy behind the LinkedIn headshot that looks with the plaid shirt on?
Yeah. First of all, I love Toronto. I live downtown. Everyone who knows me knows how much I love this city.
Everybody in Toronto loves Toronto, man. Anybody you talk to in Toronto, they're like, it's the epicenter of the world.
funny. I'm down here in San Francisco with a lot of my friends down here, like are from New York or from the Bay Area or here in LA. And, You're like, trying to tell me how great their cities are. I'm like, nope, Toronto has it all. Toronto's the best.
Toronto's the best. Now, do you feel, so you're in San Francisco now, so your job, are you spending quite a bit of time there then on a yearly basis, or just certain portions of the year that you're going down there?
This is actually my first time, second time in San Francisco in my life. First time I was here, I was 16, but first time as a LinkedIn employee.
Wow.
Our corporate head office is here.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn's very big on, traveling around, seeing different offices, collaborating with different people, meeting different people, sharing ideas. Like, it's very much a collaboration type of environment. So I had an opportunity to come down here for a few days. It's the launch of Black History Month, today being February 1st. So, we're doing a roundtable with Ernst & Young for Black History Month. I'm going to be sitting with different teams down here, collaborating with them. So that's really, I don't come down here a lot. This is my first time, and I probably necessarily won't be back here unless there's a pressing reason in the next little bit. But my next trip for LinkedIn would probably be to Chicago. I want to check out the Chicago office, or maybe go to Europe. We've got offices in Europe, EMEA. We've got an office in Melbourne, Australia. So there's a lot of different cool things that's an opportunity for me.
So with the program in Toronto, big. How do people, like Black Inclusion Group, is there, how do you get involved with that? Like I sent you a message. I'm like, how do I get involved with that? Because especially when you're somebody doing business, I do big business in Canada and I go speak everywhere. But I have to say, even for me, I'm definitely isolated out of the community, quote unquote. I mean, I think maybe for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't actively seek it because I don't actively put my mentality or my perspective that way. I don't say you're white, you're Black, you're Chinese, you're a woman, you're male. I don't roll that way. I'm like, oh, you're a cool dude, you're a cool person. Okay, we're cool. So I don't really categorize that way. But I have spoken a few local little Caribbean and African society, communities and things like that as almost like a mentor. But is there a larger way to get involved with something like this?
Well, that's what we put together the Black Professionals in Tech Network.
Yes.
Because what we're trying to do is sort of create not only a network, but, create an institute where, Black professionals, people of color can kind of come together and start collaborating with one another, matching people with leadership and enabling those conversations that are sort of the grassroots foundation of enabling change. So when people come and ask me, how can we get involved in this? That's really sort of the first place I'm now pointing people towards. It's getting involved in this network. We're going to be we just did the launch event at the LinkedIn office last week, which was a absolute blast. We blew it out of the water in terms of attendance and the experience that the attendees had.
Yeah.
And we want to keep that momentum going. We want to do another one. We'd like to eventually get to a point where it's a pan-Canadian event, and we're bringing people in and having these large conventions. So
that's great.
We have a lot of goals on where we want to take it. But I guess it's just baby steps.
Well, it's all about marketing and exposure too.
Yeah.
I'm in Toronto all the time, so I'm gonna reach out to you because I'd love to drop by and say hi. As far as, it's funny, have you been on a podcast before?
No, this is my first one.
Whoa, hey man, well that's good. You popped the cherry on that.
Virginity, yeah.
Here's what's so funny about this, and don't quote me on this, but if you took every podcast in Canada, I still have yet to find a Black person. Dude, like I've literally went in to iTunes and Google and LinkedIn and like Podcast Canada, like Black person hosted. Can't find one. Camille, do you know Camille Dundas? Does that name ring a bell?
She's in my professional network. I do not know her personally, no.
Okay, so if you want something to take back to LinkedIn, like to me, that's crazy, dude. Do you know how many podcasts there are in Canada? Holy! Oh yeah,
amazing! I did not know that.
So
good for you. Shout out to you, Ryan.
Well, no, I appreciate that, but I just thought, wow, like how come? And I mean, I actually just had a guy on, right before you as a guest. he's from San Francisco. So he's like down the block from you, man. So
Wow.
so I just kind of thought about it, right? But I know our time's getting a little bit limited here. All I would like to do at this point is basically I'm going to get into a fire round, but is there anything else you would like to mention about LinkedIn, about the program, anything specific? And to be quite honest with you, Brandon, this is your time to like be as egotistical as you want, in the sense of like, man, give it all out. The listeners on this show love it, man. They appreciate everything.
Yeah, I'll probably take this time to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is just so cool in terms of what we're doing. I mean, I've been a fan of LinkedIn before I started working here, and which is one of the reasons why I seeked out opportunities here. But I want people to start to think about LinkedIn on the grander scale and sort of where it's moving. As I mentioned earlier, we've got 500 million plus members on our network that are all sharing data with us. We know where they are location wise. We've got all this data on their past experiences. We understand people's skills. So that's extremely valuable information. And from there, we're able to then make very predictive analysis on what the skills gaps are in certain communities. And one of the really cool things we're doing, and our CEO Jeff Weiner talks about it all the time. If anybody wants to go and Google the economic graph by Jeff Weiner, but it's really about sort of creating economic opportunity for the global workforce. And one of the cool things we're doing is now being able to take some of those ideas of skills and that understanding of the skills gaps, and then working with schools and educational institutions to then help them model their programming and the sort of courses and degrees they offer, so that people who are in school are now spending their time on programs and courses that are actually valuable, so that when they graduate, they can go and make get a job. Because as I'm sure you hear, there's a lot of youth and people, new graduates, that can't find work and are ending up in jobs that have no correlation to their schooling. So that's one of the cool things LinkedIn is doing. We're really trying to become that central place for social media and talent management, so that people can really foster their career on LinkedIn, and working with companies to utilize LinkedIn. With our Microsoft acquisition last year, there's just so many more resources. So all in all, it's an exciting time for LinkedIn, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us.
That's huge, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. I have two questions. My first one is more of this is my beef with maybe I should get some Wu-Tang Raekwon up here, but I feel that our whole institution, if you go into school and education, 10, 12, I mean, man, the internet, people think the internet, we're so used to it now. The internet's not that old, 1999, 2000, right? But if we go back further to that, I remember, you graduate high school and then it's like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And really think about this. How the hell does a 17, 18-year-old know enough about themselves to know what they want to be when they grow up? Hell, I'm 33 years old and I'm still changing on a daily because, life is an adventure. Now, education system, in Canada, and you're Canadian, so you can speak to this. Kindergarten, go to grade 12, get great marks, apply for university, pick a program, subscribe to a lane, even if it's not your lane. If you come from any kind of cultural family or immigrant, you have huge pressure from parents that say, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a pharmacist, pick a lane. Now, those people, maybe they don't know what lane they want to be in. So I call that the industrial way of thinking. Now we're in 2018 where people they're not going to college. They're opening up their own enterprises, entrepreneurship, startup, all these, angel investing, all these little things. What would you tell somebody who says, geez, Brandon, I'm not one thing right now, or I don't know where I want to be. How can I use LinkedIn to still market myself, but maybe even provide me a little bit of direction? Because I think this is a great question.
Yeah, for sure. Using LinkedIn for that is actually the place where you're going to want to start to learn. I mean, and you actually bring up a great point, because I was definitely that person in university where I thought I wanted to be a doctor going into to university because my dad was a doctor and, I want to follow in his footsteps. But, after my first year of university, I knew that, that wasn't going to be for me. And I really utilized university as a place for just learning, just in general. I thought university programmed me to think and work a certain way, regardless of what I was taking, whether it be calculus or algebra or whatever the case may be. And I would just tell people, use LinkedIn as a way to sort of continue to learn. We have a learning sort of component of LinkedIn called LinkedIn Learning, where you can actually start taking courses and developing skills on things that you're passionate about. And then using it as a way to sort of see what opportunities are there, because you don't know something until you sort of see it, right? Like you gotta know that the opportunity is there, and LinkedIn is that place where you're going to be able to sort of discover those opportunities, connect with people that are doing cool things, and then maybe reaching out to that person and saying, hey, how'd you get into that? That looks super cool. And utilizing it in that way so that, you can sort of carve out your niche, because you're absolutely right. It's not easy to know what you're going to do. I mean, if you were to ask me at the beginning of university if I would be, here with you right now doing this, I couldn't have.
Not a chance.
Able to type. Not a chance.
Yeah, not a chance. You can't foresee that. I mean, it's just life is life. Last question, and then we're gonna get into fire round, and we're gonna wrap it up. If somebody's on LinkedIn right now and they feel that they have the wrong audience, meaning their connections, I feel like LinkedIn is it's a little high schoolish, where in the sense that, you have people that are like, okay, like my stuff. There's all these engagement pods and community pods and all these things. How can somebody, what's a couple just actionable steps that they can do to either get the right audience, curate the current existing audience that they have, or develop a whole brand new audience in general?
Yeah. If you're one of those people who have a lot of random connections of people you don't know, people who are kind of spamming you, and you just sort of perceive LinkedIn as sort of a spamming site, my advice to you would be scrub. Spend the time, spend the time and remove those people off your connection list, out of your network, because they're not serving value to you. Because what makes LinkedIn great is the network that you have at your disposal. So make sure that your network is filled with people who you think will bring value to you. Second step would be to start following different companies that you're really passionate about, following influencers. So guys like Barack Obama, Justin Trudeau. I'm a big Mark Cuban fan. I love him just from his sports and his business mindset. So I follow him. So I like following those sorts of people so that you're getting the type of content that you're interested in pushed out to you would probably be a good start, I think, in terms of making sure LinkedIn delivers the value that you want it to give to you.
Man, that's great. Fire round: sneakers or dress shoes?
Sneakers, 100%.
100. Do you ever wear sneakers around LinkedIn?
Probably, unless I have client meetings, I'm in sneakers every day.
Really? Eh? So is it so can you? So is it a pretty casual dress environment?
Yeah.
Unless your client.
If you come to work like an everyday work day in a dress shirt and dress pants, everyone's gonna look at you and say, what's up, Mr. Fresh? Why you? What do you got going on today?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Okay, cool. What's for dinner tonight? What are you gonna have in San Francisco?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah,
networking events. I'm hoping there's some catered food, hopefully some steak and some mashed potatoes.
Brandon's straight from the 6. What he meant by that little educated statement was, he's at a networking event. There's going to be some free food, and he's going to be taking advantage of it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Number 3, biggest pet peeve or annoyance of social media in general.
People, there's 2. People that overshare, I think, a little bit too much, that are just too frequent.
Yeah.
And then social media, just the narcissism sometimes, people that just love taking pictures of themselves over and over again. And I understand, obviously, you want to showcase your life, your work, the world that you're in, and that's amazing. But I'm sure you know what I mean. There's
absolutely.
People that every day is a different selfie.
Absolutely. 4, are you a hunter or gatherer?
Oh, that's a good one.
Coming at you, Brandon. I'm coming at you deep.
I'm a hunter. Shooters are going to shoot.
Number 5, you're a new addition to a crayon box. What color would you be?
Blue.
Okay. Yeah. 6, who would win the fight between Superman and Batman?
Superman, of course.
Okay. What is the number one thing that drives you?
My father.
Okay.
I'd have to say. Yeah.
Proudest moment personally?
Proudest moment. I'd have to say my proudest moment was probably graduating university and having my mom and my family there.
Biggest professional accomplishment?
Biggest professional accomplishment has got to be, meeting my sales goals this year and joining big as the lead and really sort of elevating my career.
That's great, man. How do you define success?
I define success as meeting your goals and objectives, whether that be financially or personally. If you can meet the goals that you've set for yourself, then you're successful.
What are you scared of?
Scared of letting the people who believe in me down.
Okay. Do you have a role model?
My father.
Okay. What is your favorite thing to do, non-work related?
Play basketball.
Play basketball. Okay. All right. When you think of Toronto, what is the first word that comes to mind? Don't you dare say it. No.
You thought I was going to say Drake?
You know when I had Camille on, she's like the center of the world. I was like, oh, how dare you? How dare you? 15. One piece of advice you would give someone who is scared shitless.
That's a fixed mindset, and that's all in your head.
Last question. When you hear the word star, what is the first thought that comes to mind?
Someone who shines.
Ah, there you go, man. I like that. Brandon, this is your time to let everybody know how they can reach out to you, your programs, initiatives on social media. Plug. The stage is yours.
Yeah, so to reach out to me, feel free to connect with me, Brandon Sewell, last name spelled Sewell. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're interested in joining the Black Professional and Tech Network, we've just created a group, so check us out at Black Professionals Tech Network, BPTN, on LinkedIn. Get involved in the group so you can stay up to date with all the news. Other than that, come to Toronto and see me. I love meeting new people and creating new memorable experiences.
I like that. And you know what? Yeah. Brandon can also get on a damn airplane and come see you because not everybody goes to Toronto.
They should, though. It's not this month.
Too cold. Everyone, this has been another episode of the Ryan Holtz Show podcast. Again, I thank you for listening. I thank you for the reviews. Please go on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play. Rate the podcast. You can connect with me at Ryan Holtz1 on all the platforms. I'm at Ryan Holtz on LinkedIn. And this has been another episode. I hope you feel inspired. Hope you feel great. And the only enemy is your inner me. So kill it. Brandon, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it.